We put these up, there was just a little piece here that we put these in, you can see them here, all along there. So these, we started putting these up, we put the scaffolding up and stuff like that. And there was only a half a dozen of us there, because this was the day before we actually started the construction. And this was what the typical house looked like. This was the neighbor, like they're all flat roof, and pretty much all of them has a block started here with rebar sticking out. And Zoe, you can tell them why they don't finish their houses there.
They only, they'll build up one floor, then they'll start building up the second floor, because there, if you don't have a roof on your house, you don't have to pay property tax. So they start the next floor and then just leave it, that way they don't have to pay property taxes on the houses.
And you'll see as we go on through these different houses, there's rebar sticking up. Almost every house has rebar sticking up, or a wall half built or something like that. So none of the houses are finished, what we would consider finished. There's a few of the wealthy people, but people that are just average people don't seem to finish their houses. They start the second floor, or they just put one block up, and they use it for whatever purposes, because if it rains there, I mean, at times when it rains, they have huge torrential downpours, but most of the time it's just like, if I spit on you, you'd be wetter than when it rains there. But this was the rafters we built. We built all of these. This was for this. Once we put these metal bars up, we would have rafters go across each one of these. So we were building all of these, and we had people from all walks of life. This was a Dominican guy there, and he had told us through a translator that he became an Adventist a few years ago, and he's just a young guy, 21 or 22, and when he became an Adventist, his whole family just had nothing to do with him anymore because they thought that he was wrong in his beliefs and stuff like that. So he has no family. The church is his family, and there was another young guy there with us too, that the church was his family also, because their family just abandoned them after they became Christians. And this guy here, he was with us the first day, but he ended up being with Zoe after that, because he was the boss of the other site, Mark. And this is my boss, Bernie. He's an electrician too. So we had 3 electricians on our site, but the electrical there is nothing like ours. I did it the first day, but then after that I was like told Bernie, I said, I'm not doing the electrical here because they don't do it right and they won't listen. And so the other guy, Sam, he didn't care. He did it, because they wouldn't use mason boxes when we worked on masonry, like most you people who've worked in construction, and you know, in masonry we have a specific box we use. Well, they didn't have them. They had 2 little 1110 boxes, and I had to cut the back off of one and wire the 2 together and put them on the pipes, and they didn't use connectors or nothing like that. And I was fine. I said, if you guys want to do it wrong, you do it wrong. I'm not doing it. And I said afterwards, I said, that was one of my biggest frustrations with it, was we knew what we was doing in our trades, but they was like, well, if we do it, because they had actual people from Maranatha that worked for them that were our group leaders, and they said, no, this is the way we always do it. We said, well, you're doing it wrong. And they said, well, our boss will be mad if we do it differently. And we said, well, your boss is wrong. He's doing it wrong. And they was like, no, we're doing it that way. And I said, all right, well, you guys do it that way, and I'll go lay block. I'm not a block buyer, but I'll lay block. So, and then this was their existing church. If you see, they only have one rafter that has like a support beam. The rest of them are all just across like that, and got that little bar there. And their church, they just got a tarp, like same as we buy those little tarps at Canadian Tire. They had a tarp there and just a few wood studs up along here. And behind this is all block here. They just got that up there kind of for a better look, I guess. And this is their pulpit, and it says welcome here, bienvenidos. So that was welcome, and then they got a baptismal tank over here, just an above ground one that looks like somebody just welded the corners all up good, and then this little ladder right here they move over and set it there whenever they have a baptism. And that's again their pulpit for their church. And this is looking out the back. You can't see right now, but if once I get a clearer picture, this is all that barbed wire with the razor on it. So I don't know what they expect there. There's nothing to steal, but I guess they don't want anybody in. And it's all the properties are like this around there. They have that barbed wire, so if you climbed over it, the razors would cut you to shreds trying to get into a place. But you see all along the outside of their church, they've just got tarps around there. And they didn't have any electricity at this church, other than they had a generator. On Sabbath, they would bring a generator in, and they would start the generator up, because the Sabbath I went to this church, the generator ran out of gas during the service, and then they had to go and take the gallon jug or whatever and fill the generator up again and start it again and keep on going. But it didn't seem to bother them. They're all happy and enjoyed being at worship. And that was another thing I noticed there, was how much the people enjoyed worship. Like the second Sabbath I went to this church, the first Sabbath I went to Zoe's church there, but I went to this one the second Sabbath, and there was probably 100+ people there. And the people are happy to be there, and they show it. I mean, they're enthusiastic about being in a place of worship. And this part here was, you came down a set of stairs and come along here, and this was their classrooms for their children before. And you can see just had a flat steel roof on it. But I don't think they worry much about the rain because it never rains. This is their neighbors, the neighbors of the church here, and that's what they use their rebar for. You see, they hang their clothes out on it and stuff like that. And you can tell this person doesn't have hot water in their house, because any house that has hot water has a black tank sitting up on here, and it's probably a 200-gallon tank, a big black plastic tank that the sun heats up, and that circulates their hot water through the house. If they don't have a black tank on top of their house, they don't have hot water. And the resort we stayed at did not have a black tank on top of the roof.
It's cold showers.
Because it was cold showers. And I don't like cold water, so my showers was basically I'd get in and hold my hand like that and kind of spray the water over my head and jerk around a little bit, and finally I got through it. And this was Ed, a guy that we met there. He was a Spanish teacher back in the United States. And there was 95 of us that went on this trip, and there was people from Bermuda, Bahamas, United States, and Canada. And I think there was 11 Canadians. And there was this one fellow, Luke. Everywhere as I went on the job site, he was always around me. And I thought, why is that guy following me around? And then later on, he came over and talked to me, and he says, "You're Canadian, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I am too." He said, "That's why I've been following you around." With Jeff or Luke? Okay, Jeff. And I said, "Oh, okay, I thought you were just kind of stalking me." He was kind of freaking me out. But then once I found out he was a Canadian, I said, "Okay, we got to stick together." But I'll tell you, on the job site, my job site, we had a lot of Canadians, and all of the Canadians were the best workers, not to be bragging or anything, but we outworked the Americans. This was what the structure looked like once it was all up. See, we put these metal kind of strapping across here, and that would help when we later put the metal up there. That's where we screwed the metal to. So this was after the end of one day. We had what they call the one-day church. That was it. Well, the roof on it is a finished product. A one-day church doesn't provide any walls or nothing. It's just that structure there with a roof on it. And so there we're still building rafters, because we had a couple rafters left to finish at the other end. And there's me. I hadn't shaved for a few days, so I'm looking pretty rough. And that was a pastor, Pastor Wayne. There was a lot of pastors on this trip. There was probably 4 or 5 pastors, and there was computer programmers, and there was doctors and nurses, and there wasn't very many construction people. Most of the people were just like office people. But the one thing that I found the most that I enjoyed about it was, and I'll go to a text, Nehemiah 4:6. And I told the crew this one day, was everybody there willingly worked. I mean, one guy that I worked with, Brent, he was a computer programmer, and he told me, he said, "I don't know anything about construction." He said, "You guys just show me what to do, and I'll do whatever you tell me to do." And he did. He worked long, and everybody did work long without complaining, and it was hot. It was hard working for the heat, but nobody complained. Everybody just worked. And Nehemiah 4:6 talks about the rebuilding of Jerusalem after they came back from Babylon. And Nehemiah says, "So built we the wall," and the people built the wall because they had a mind to work. And that's what I thought when we was there. Everybody, even though they didn't know about construction, the people built the walls because they had a mind to work. The people was there for a purpose, to bless the people that we was there working for, because without what we done, these people couldn't have had a church. And this was what the bathrooms looked like. So if you ever go to our bathroom and you see it a little bit dirty, think of this and don't complain. This is where they get their water. There's no water source feeding into the toilet. They fill this garbage can before any church services with water. There's a big cistern out front that they have water, and they bring it in by the pails, 5-gallon pails. They fill this. You see there's no seat on it, so you set right on that there. And it's, when you're done, you take a pail of water and you dump it. And toilet paper does not win the toilet, because we was told over and over and over, Do not put toilet paper in the toilet. If you do, you're digging it back out. So we was careful not to put toilet paper in the toilet. It went in the garbage can. And this was where the children's classrooms was before. This was a classroom, and then there was another place on the other side of that board. So you can see it looks almost primitive to what we would have, because the people just have no money to do anything with it. This is their pastor. He came to visit us the first day. Well, he was there quite a bit. But this pastor, he lived within 15 minutes of this church, and he has 9 churches that he's the pastor of. And he said all 9 churches are within driving distance of him, that he could drive to every church, every Sabbath or every day of the week, whatever, because there was that many churches close to him that we found there the people were very hungry to hear the word of God. Because like I said, there was the 9 churches just in his little district, and we was probably an hour or more from Zoe's church, and her church had a different pastor than him. So I don't know how many churches are in the area, but in Santo Domingo where we was, 5 days after we left, Mark Finley, who used to be the written speaker, he went there and he did a 5-day evangelistic crusade, and I talked about it a few weeks ago here. And do you remember how many people was baptized from that?
3,000.
3,052 people was baptized as a result of this crusade. And Mark Finley said, I read a statement that he wrote on this. He was in this big auditorium and there was seating for over 20,000 people. And he said the seating was filled. There was people standing in the aisles. There was people standing in the entrances. He said there was people standing everywhere. And he said, for the first time in my ministry, he said, I was tempted to pray, Lord, stop them from coming. Now this is the church that Zoe worked on here, but there's only 1 or 2 pictures, because the first Sabbath we went to her church. And you can see the Maranatha group that was there before, they didn't finish the eve. This wall wasn't built, Zoe and them did this. But we'll get on to some more of hers. This is my job site again here, and this was after a few days. We had the wall up quite a bit, and you see we had the tarp on there. And at first I thought the tarp was there in case it rained, but then I realized it never rains here, so it's not for the rain, it was for the heat. So we worked inside, we had our scaffolding set up inside, so the sun wasn't beating on us all the time. We had the tarp to protect us some from the sun and the heat. And this was, they just had this, that it was a community project by Maranatha Volunteers International. And this was another day or 2 later. The first day we only did 2 courses. The second day I think we did 2 courses. And the third day we did 4 courses. So we was getting into the swing of it by the 3rd day. And they put these, it's not like here, they put these metal braces up on every corner and they marked every 8 inches for the block. I was telling them our masons here would just build up a corner and they would string out from the corners, but they don't. They put up corner braces. And they do them all level, and they mark them at 8 inches, so you never put anything on the block. And they don't finish their mortar joints. Our masons always finish their mortar joints because they stucco all of theirs after they're finished. Now this was the pastor of their church. And like I said, he has nine churches. And this was John Cantrell, a young guy we met from down in the States. And if you ever watch movies with somebody with a southern drawl, he had a southern drawl. And we had the best time just hanging out with him because he would tell us all kinds of stories. He's like 14 years old and he raises sheep and he's got, I don't know how many sheep he's got.
His sheep just gave birth to like 10 different lambs right now, so. Yes.
And he has a big male ram and he named it Rambo Cephas. Because he likes Bocephus, or he liked Rambo and his grandmother liked Bocephus.
His grandmother liked Rambo and he liked Bocephus.
So he named it Rambo Cephas. And he was telling us when he went back home, he was hoping that his grandparents were thinking of Christmas, buying him a couple of cows for Christmas.
A pair of cows.
He was excited to get home and have a couple of cows, but he never got them when he got home because it never came through or whatever. But he had a sheep born on Christmas Day, so he was pretty happy about that.
Yeah.